First one up is Gemini Falls by Sean Wilson. It comes to us from Affirm Press. It's a debut crime. And yeah, this is one of those ones that I read thinking, that's a great cover, great, it's got a nice feel. Sort of, it seems to be a quiet book. Boy, oh boy, well worth plunging into, and it's a really lovely story. It's very, very well written. Set in Melbourne, and then it moves from Melbourne, but it starts in Melbourne in the 1930s, and we have a young Morris Turner who is about 30. He is 13, and he lives with his sister and his dad. His dad's a detective, and there is no mother, and this is possibly the root of Morris's anxiety going through life and his constant sort of exhortation for himself to be a braver boy. Very nice little thread of his interest shared with his dad in astronomy and the stories of the stars. It's not too overdone. It's just beautifully pitched, that, and it gave little punctuation in the book to sort of letting the father or the son or other people who end up looking through the telescope have little stories about little morals or little stories about bravery or about the things that happen to people. The family moves from Melbourne in kind of the depression. There's polio, there's fear, there's intense poverty. And the father has been sent to look after this case, or to sort out a murder that has happened in what happens to have been his hometown. You have an ideal setting there, really. It's a mining town. It's beautifully, this is what I really liked, is Wilson really lets you get into that town, get inside the heads of its different people, and does that narrator, that sort of 13-year-old narrator voice to perfection. It's very subtle and very, very well done. I really, really enjoyed that. When Morris arrives with his sister, of course, his sister's off doing her own thing. They're housed by an uncle, his dad's brother, and there is a young girl in that household, same age as Morris, called Flo, very much into detective novels. Obviously, what's going to happen is she and he are going to put their heads together and try detecting themselves. They co-opt another young fella from the town called Sam, who's big into theatre and theatricals, and they will, and this I liked as well, they will sort of have some harebrained theories. Flo, because she's from the town, will have all sorts of prejudices and biases. And, she will come up with harebrained schemes that are very much of that age, very well handled. And of course, then you have this town, which is itself struggling. There is a community of sort of displaced people in a very financial dire straits. And the town sort of looks at them with, they're the ones who have committed this murder. The daughter of one of the miners, one Catherine Fletcher, has been found at the entrance to the mine, and she has been stabbed. And this is what Jude has come to detect. He's investigating this, and obviously town tension, all of that, superb. It's one of those books that I think fizzed quietly with the sort of static of all of those things that that are never said, and this is Morris's story too. And that was handled absolutely beautiful. I really enjoyed that feeling of the slow reveal of all the territories we're not prepared to sort of wander into. Excellent, excellent read. Very highly recommend that one. You're getting a lot of the usual, couple of red herrings, a couple of clues, keeps you guessing. Nice one. Next one up is Inga Simpson's Willowman, and this one comes to us from Hachette. She has written several books, and I picked this one up and I said, looks like it's about, Willowman. It made me think about other things, but then I said, actually it's about cricket. I'm not sure I'm very interested in cricket. Picked it up, read a couple of pages and said, I'm really not that interested in cricket. Why am I still reading this book? And hence all the way through the book. It is, I was drawn in and I was kind of pinned, staked, to to one place reading it because I was intrigued. Basically it's it is the world of cricket. So if you're sporty and if you love cricket, this is a simply astonishingly detailed, rich account of not just the game, but also the making of bats, the use of willow for bat making. We have two protagonists, if you like. It's mostly told to us from the point of view of Alan Reader, who is a bat maker, who has links with original sort of artisanal bat making in England. He also grows his own version of the white willow, a willow that grows well in Australia. And then we have a young Todd Harrow, who is an up-and-coming cricketer who our Alan Reader, who's fascinated by all things cricket, spots him at a national championships at under-19s in Melbourne and says, there's talent, and makes him a bat. And then there's this sort of magic between the boy and the bat. And this boy, Todd, also has a younger sister, Olivia, who's equally talented, but of course she's a girl. We go through the two lives of these men, the sort of the hazards of their passion being dedicated to something, of how much space that occupies and what the risks to them physically might be. Obviously greater for someone who's involved in a sport where you might get hit by something. And also the sort of the cost in your personal life as well by having a sort of a focus, an obsessive focus on the one thing, understandable focus on the one thing. I found the book, it danced along. They're punctuated by all of this love of, and you feel this, that Simpson has delved into all that there is to know about cricket. You feel this kind of exhilaration as there's a sporting achievement or a moment of, out of the blue, you pull something off. That kind of same despair when you're watching your favourite sports person, come a cropper on the field. All of that is in there. You ride this kind of exultant wave of, I suppose it's sort of like being, if I can say this, that in communion with something that you feel is good and true or is valuable, whether that be love or whether it be music, because there's a lot of music in the book, or whether that be, the perfect strike. It's a tremendous book. For everyone, whether or not you love cricket, on so many levels. It just ticks so many boxes. Really, really enjoyed that one. And the last one up today is Fiona McFarlane's The Sun Walks Down, from Alan and Unwin. This is maybe a slightly different pace, also a bit like Willowman, set to be, I would say, an Australian classic. This will probably win things. Awards. It has won my admiration. It is set in 1883 in the Flinders Ranges. And I think this book is in a lot of ways as much about the landscape. It's a book where the landscape is almost the main protagonist. And then set against that, you'll have this very, very broad cast of people living in a town called Fairley, and how they respond to, are sort of challenged by, or sort of fit themselves into the landscape that they're born in or they have settled in. So we have this very wide cast of characters, from sort of Germanic origin settlers, wealthy landowners, widowed, some of them with children who are taking on the properties and trying to make a living in times that seem to be, as were in this novel, not necessarily too challenging. You have people who are eking out a rather more, I suppose, less secure living from the land. And this is where our story begins. We have a young boy who walks out of his family home. Mary and Martin Wallace have several children, and this is their second youngest, a little Denny Wallace. And he is used to kind of wandering away. He's kind of confident in his landscape, and then a dust storm arrives and he gets himself a bit lost, and he wanders off into the outback, and it's very unsure that he could be safe out there. So there is a manhunt. And this manhunt allows us sort of draw together all these threads, all these characters who are going to be involved with this from the rest of the siblings in his family, mostly girls, or all girls who are left, who at various ages are testing who they are and whether they're going to be good girls or get away with things or want their mummy's attention or whatever it is. But all of these are delicately sort of filled in as back stories, or not back stories, but as sort of concurrent threads. You have the daughter of one of the wealthy Germanic families who's just got married to the local police constable Manning, and it's their first, not flirtation, but their first sort of trying out marriage, which is great fun. There are cameleers, there are some very interesting indigenous trackers and their response to the land, which is very nicely exposed for us. We have, everything and everyone who could have, crossed the land in this period. And also into this, we have these two. We have a Swedish painter and his wife who are trying to capture the sun, and they become very important because they do come across this boy at some point. The whole, perhaps the whole beauty of this story is not just the landscape. It's that it's not bleak, and it's that constant reminder that you're small against the bigness of the Australian scenery. I kind of got the feeling she was writing an awful lot about these boundaries. This book is about boundaries as well. The boundaries that even the Indigenous have in, I can't go up that mountain because it's, I'm not supposed to, which makes tracking a bit difficult, or the kind of cultural exchanges where, you'll have one wealthy landowner looking at a possum cloak and saying, I actually want that. So maybe if we give him a coat, a different coat, he'll give me that one. And it's sort of, there's a boundary you shouldn't be trying to cross. So it's that sort of look at who owns land, who thinks land is a possession, boundaries of, is this proper behaviour now that I'm a married woman? And is other men off limits? About knowing what side of things to be on and where the law, how far is its reach. It was just everything in there as a sort of hymn to being people and being in a landscape. I've mostly speechless, thought it was an absolute stunner. That's it. See you soon. Keep reading.